Dear audience, you are following the News of America Daily News. I'm editor John Tyson. Today is October 26th. In 2020, there will be the following main news. 1. Coronavirus outbreak at Massachusetts nursing home leaves 5 dead. 2. Coronavirus behind 2/3 of excess deaths in U.S., CDC. 3. Coronavirus outbreaks lead this state to close indoor ice rinks. Enormous impact of coronavirus translates to 2.5 million years of potential life lost. Study. 4. Drop in flu deaths may indicate that most at risk died from coronavirus. 5. Coronavirus complicating holiday plans. Experts weigh in. 6. Coronavirus in the U.S., state-by-state breakdown. 7. Trump mocks Biden to Pennsylvania crowd over oil comment, he blew it. 8. Jared Kushner, peace deals are much harder than President Trump is making them look. 9. GOP accuses Joe Biden of confusing his opponent after George comment. 10. Poll watcher submits affidavit alleging Houston judge and election staff committed voter fraud, report. 11. Boston man arrested in connection to ballot drop box fire investigated by FBI. 12. U.S. Marshals rescue 45 missing children as part of Operation Autumn Hope. 13. California wildfire forces evacuations of 60,000 in Orange County as gusty winds blast region. 14. U.S. threatens to destroy Iranian missiles shipped to Venezuela. 15. Tropical storm Zeta, rapidly strengthening, on way to Yucatan, takes aim at U.S. Gulf Coast. An outbreak of the novel coronavirus at a nursing home in Massachusetts has left 5 residents dead, according to state data. Data from the Massachusetts Department of Health shows that some 30 people, including both residents and staff, at Sunny Acres Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Chelmsford, have tested positive for COVID-19. In a statement posted to its website last week, Sunny Acres Administrator Jeff Schwartz said the center has been fortunate over the past 15 weeks to not have a single resident or staff COVID-19 positive case, noting that the facility has conducted some 1,600 PCR tests on staffs and residents to date. The center has provided numerous education and in-service programs with all staff members on current infection control practices, proper use of PPE supplies and COVID-19 prevention. Our top priority is the safety and well-being of our residents and the dedicated staff who are making enormous personal sacrifices to provide compassionate care during this public health crisis. He continued. Unfortunately, it has proved impossible to keep this rapidly spreading and highly contagious virus out of this center. He wrote. Several residents began testing positive in September, Schwartz said. However, the good news, Schwartz noted, is that many of our residents have moved past their 14-day isolation period and on the road to recovery. We are monitoring their progress very closely. As of Sunday, Massachusetts has reported 147,120 confirmed cases of COVID-19. A recent report found that coronavirus caused 2/3 of the almost 300,000 higher than average U.S. deaths this year, per a recent report from the CDC. These excess deaths include lives lost from any cause and can give a better idea of the mortality associated with the pandemic. Study authors wrote. Deaths counts directly owing to the pandemic are prone to underestimates due to inaccuracies in death certificates or testing shortages. Among other limitations, the agency noted. The CDC compared weekly death data from its National Vital Statistics System from January 26 to October 3, 2020 to 2015 to 2019, and calculated the percentage change during the time frame under study. The CDC identified 299,028 excess deaths in the U.S., which peaked in mid-April and again in the week of August 8. The largest percentage increases were seen among adults aged 25 to 44 years, at 26.5%, and among Hispanic or Latino, Hispanic, persons, at 53.6%. Study authors wrote, adding that the disproportionate toll among minorities is in line with previous findings. In comparison, excess deaths among adults over 85 were up by 14.7%. And among white people, for example, deaths were 11.9% higher than average. The CDC said from May to August, There was an uptick in coronavirus deaths among younger people. But trends in other mortality causes could be at play. Future analyses might shed light on the extent to which increases among younger age groups are driven by COVID-19 or by other causes of death. Study authors wrote. A separate study by researchers from Virginia Commonwealth University and Yale University previously came to the same conclusion. COVID-19 caused 67% of U.S. excess deaths. However, their data did not include deaths in September or October. Ice rinks in one New England state are temporarily closed due to a rise in cases of the novel coronavirus linked to indoor hockey. Officials with the Massachusetts Department of Health late last week announced the temporary closure of indoor ice rinks and ice skating facilities following reports of multiple COVID-19 clusters across the state linked to games, practices and tournaments, they said. More specifically, there have been some 30 clusters associated with ice hockey activities with outbreaks involving residents from more than 60 municipalities in Massachusetts. Per officials, each of these includes 2 or more confirmed or probable COVID-19 cases, totaling 108 confirmed cases. They said. The 2-week pause, which began on October 23 and ends on November 7, will allow for the development of stronger COVID-19 protocols to further protect players, families, coaches, arena staff and other participants, as well as communities surrounding hockey rinks, said officials. College and professional programs are exempt, however. The news comes after the CDC in a report earlier this month found that intense indoor sports can contribute to COVID-19 transmission, with the federal agency citing ice hockey as a key example. The ice rink provides a venue that is likely well suited to COVID-19 transmission as an indoor environment where deep breathing occurs, and persons are in close proximity to one another. The CDC said at the time when detailing at least 14 virus cases linked to an indoor hockey game in Florida. Flu deaths are down 2/3 from the 5-year average, a drop that could indicate the most vulnerable Americans died in the first wave of COVID-19. New federal estimates show no flu deaths for the week ending October 17. The federal 5-year average for the same week is 17 fatalities. New York and New York City recorded no flu deaths, which is also that week's 5-year average for each. The city is taking a wait-and-see attitude, with the flu season just a few weeks old. We are still very early into this influenza season, and it's too early to make any predictions on severity. Health Department spokesman Michael Lanza told the Post. A similar pattern is emerging in the UK, where flu and pneumonia took 1,132 lives last month, 28% lower than the 5-year monthly average of roughly 1,500. The country's Office for National Statistics thinks the drop is because medically vulnerable Brits who would have died this fall from flu and pneumonia instead died this spring from the coronavirus. But private British statistician Kevin McConway told the Post he doubts whether it's the whole story. McConway points out that flu and pneumonia are airborne infections like the coronavirus, and the safety guidelines put in place for the pandemic, masks, social distancing, and hand washing, would stop them, too, said State Health Department spokesman Jeffrey Hammond. Wearing masks, social distancing, hand washing, and all the other measures put in place to slow the coronavirus should also slow the flu and other viruses. U.S. health officials have been urging Americans for months that a bad flu season on top of the COVID outbreak could overwhelm hospitals and increase the risk of catching both infections at the same time. Pneumonia deaths in the U.S. and across the city and state are down as well. For the week ending October 17, deaths nationwide stood at 1,251. Down 60% from the 5-year average of 3,106 for the same week. The state recorded 93 pneumonia deaths, a 36% decrease from the 5-year average of 146 for the same week. The city's total stood at 51, down the 5-year average of 86, a 41% reduction. Thanksgiving and Christmas are just around the corner. But like most everything else this year, these events will likely look a bit different than normal as the holiday season coincides with the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Many may be wondering, is it safe to see friends and family? Should I travel? How can we include grandparents, and other older family members in the celebrations this year while keeping them safe? When speaking specifically to Thanksgiving earlier this month, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading infectious disease expert, said people will have to make their individual choice when it comes to how to go about celebrating the holiday this year. I think we need to realize things might be different this year, particularly if you want to have people who are going to be flying in from a place that has a lot of infection. You're going to an airport that might be crowded. You're on a plane, and then to come in. Unless you absolutely know you're not infected, there are many people who are not going to want to take that risk, he told Yahoo News at the time, noting that his 3 children have decided against coming to see him this year. Speaking to America Daily News, Dr. John White, the chief medical officer of the healthcare website WebMD, echoed these comments, noting that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. It all depends on your family members' health conditions as well as what is going on in your local area, as well as where you may travel, he said. If you are going to visit in person with elderly family members or others at increased risk, it might be a good idea for everyone to get a COVID test a few days before the gathering, he suggested. But even if the result is negative, that doesn't mean throw all the usual safeguards out the window, he said, such as social distancing and wearing a mask. But if it's positive, it tells you it's a no-go, added White. While celebrating outside may be an option for some, White said it's not realistic to do this in all areas, as late autumn temperatures could make this unbearable in colder parts of the country. Rather, I tell people it's still a good idea to open a window while inside, and cut down on the time of a gathering, he said, suggesting 2 to 3 hours as opposed to 6 to 8. Move around while there. The shorter time might benefit your mental health as well, he quipped. Additionally, consider doing smaller gatherings with 10 people, or less depending upon the size of the house or apartment. You could also invite a couple of people over at a time and do it on different days. No one says you have to only celebrate on the actual holiday this year, he said. If your family chooses the virtual route for the holidays this year, White suggested to consider making the food ahead of time, and then sending it out so everyone shared the same meal. That may be more of an effort this year, but might help for feeling together, he said. White's advice comes after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention updated its COVID-19 related holiday guidance. Overall, the agency said, staying home is the best way to protect yourself and others. But if you must travel, to be aware of the risks involved. The federal agency states a low-risk way to celebrate this year would be to have a small dinner with only the people who live in your household and preparing meals for higher-risk friends and family that can be delivered. It also suggests watching sports and parades from home rather than in person and having a virtual dinner. Meanwhile, having small outdoor dinners with family and friends who live within the community is considered a moderate-risk activity. The CDC also recommends limiting the duration of in-person gatherings and warns to avoid participating in any holiday events with other people if you have symptoms of or have been exposed to the new coronavirus. As of Monday morning, the novel coronavirus has infected more than 43,038,798 people across 189 countries and territories, resulting in at least 1,154,242 deaths. In the U.S., all 50 states plus the District of Columbia have reported confirmed cases of COVID-19, tallying more than 8,636,168 illnesses and at least 225,230 deaths. Here's a look at the 10 states with the most cases. 1. California. 906,795 cases. 2. Texas. 892,006 cases. 3. Florida. 778,636 cases. 4. New York. 495,464 cases. 5. Illinois. 378,958 cases. 6. Georgia. 350,923 cases. 7. North Carolina. 260,099 cases. 8. Tennessee. 247,587 cases. 9. Arizona. 238,163 cases. 10. New Jersey. 228,468 cases. Here's a look at the top 10 states with the most deaths. 1. New York. 33,422 deaths. 2. Texas. 17,955 deaths. 3. California. 17,359 deaths. 4. Florida. 16,429 deaths. 5. New Jersey. 16,285 deaths. 6. Massachusetts. 9,864 deaths. 7. Illinois. 9,775 deaths. 8. Pennsylvania. 8,647 deaths. 9. Georgia. 7,809 deaths. 10. Michigan. 7,522 deaths. President Trump warned Pennsylvania residents that a Joe Biden administration would sink their state's economy, while mocking his Democratic rival for what he called a shocking admission about his energy policy. Biden said that he would transition from the oil industry after Trump had pressed him on the subject. Last week, Sleepy Joe Biden made perhaps the most shocking admission ever uttered in the history of presidential debates. Trump told a crowd at a rally in Allentown. In other words, he blew it. Trump went on to say that the Democratic nominee confirmed his plan to abolish the entire U.S. oil industry, which the president said, that means no fracking, no jobs, no energy for Pennsylvania families. The president accused Biden of supporting ideas that would lead Pennsylvania to financial ruin. He will eradicate your energy and send Pennsylvania into a crippling depression, he said. Over the weekend, Biden faced questions from multiple local Pennsylvania news outlets over his debate comments, as well as his mixed messages regarding fracking. He claimed that the transition away from oil was already the trend, having nothing to do with his policy proposals. Biden did say he would put an end to existing subsidies and tax breaks for oil companies. Talking to WBRE, Biden insisted that he will not ban fracking, repeating his claim that he only supports banning new fracking on federal lands. During the debate, Trump accused him of changing his stance on fracking over the course of his campaign. Biden denied it and dared Trump to post video of him saying something different. That night, Trump's campaign shared a montage of clips. They included Biden being asked during a primary debate if there would be any place for coal, fracking or any fossil fuels if he becomes president. No. We would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated, Biden said. Peace deals are much harder than President Trump is making them look. White House advisor Jared Kushner, who has been involved in brokering the Middle East peace deals, told Fox and Friends on Monday. Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, made the comment 3 days after Trump announced a peace deal that would normalize ties between Israel and Sudan. Trump also claimed on Friday that there would be many more peace deals to come in the Middle East. On Monday, Kushner pointed out that the agreement between Israel and Sudan was the third peace agreement that we've been able to announce in the last couple of months. The administration has already brokered peace agreements between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Kushner said that some people would be in Washington for 30, 40 years and are never able to work on a single foreign transaction. We've now achieved 3 peace deals, he pointed out. We were able to work very closely with Sudan. Kushner continued. Sudan was in a state of war with Israel and the significance of this agreement I can't overstate enough. He went on to say, in 1967, after the Six-Day War, the Arab League met in Sudan. And that's where they had the famous Edict of 3 No's. No peace, no recognition, no negotiations, and obviously on Friday we announced the 3 yes. The third peace deal. Kushner stressed that he believes the peace deal between Sudan and Israel is a great breakthrough for the region, and said that he thinks you're going to continue to see progress. Trump said on Friday that he believes even Iran would someday normalize relations with Israel. Iran ultimately will become a member of this whole thing. Look, someday I'd love to help Iran get back on track. They've gone from a rich country to a poor country in 3 years. the president said. But they can't have nuclear weapons. He continued. It's always death to Israel, that's all they shout. So they can't have nuclear weapons. The president also said that a deal between Israel and the Palestinian region may be on the horizon. Trump said he expects Saudi Arabia will come to the table for a deal soon as well. There's going to be a big reunion. Where everybody is here, everybody's going to be signed. We expect Saudi Arabia's going to be one of those countries. Highly respected. The king and the crown prince. They're all just highly respected in the Middle East. On Monday, Kushner noted that people have been very critical of the president over the last 3 years for whatever he does. But the reality is he's taken a different approach on how to deal with Washington. He took a different approach in the Middle East and he's put up results. You can't argue with the results that he's achieved. Kushner said. This historic peace deal is something that will make the world safer and make America safer. He continued. It allows us to bring troops home and have less threats for radical Islamic terror and other threats to our shores. Republicans on Monday accused Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden of confusing President Trump's name during an interview, though observers hit back by pointing out that Biden may have been referring to his interviewer, comedian George Lopez. Biden campaign spokesman Andrew Bates denied any confusion, telling America Daily News he was addressing George Lopez, the interviewer, as is a common practice. That is, unless, like Donald Trump, you blow a gasket and storm out because you can't stomach being fact-checked. Biden made the comments Sunday at an I Will Vote concert virtual campaign event while speaking with Lopez. That featured a number of high-profile Hollywood names including John Legend, Dave Matthews, Pink, Cher and more. Not because I'm running, but because who I'm running against. This is the most consequential election in a long time. Biden said. And the character of the country in my view is literally on the ballot. What kind of country we're gonna be? 4 more years of George, George. Gonna find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world. Republicans, who have taken pains to point out any verbal gaffe from Biden, clipped the video from the campaign event and shared it online, and accused Biden of referring to former President George W. Bush. The video was posted to Twitter by the RNC research account and GOP Rapid Response Director Steve Guest. Biden and his representatives have slammed Republicans for suggesting Biden might have mental acuity problems, with Trump even at one point suggesting Biden was taking performance-enhancing drugs. Trump himself in a Monday morning tweet referenced Biden's comments. Joe Biden called me George yesterday. Couldn't remember my name. Got some help from the anchor to get him through the interview. The fake news cartel is working overtime to cover it up. Trump said. Biden, age 77, is not the only high-profile politician to face health questions this year. President Trump, age 74, was hospitalized with the coronavirus, and his representatives were accused of being less than transparent when he was taken to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center for treatment. A retired police officer and Texas poll watcher submitted a sworn affidavit to the Harris County District Attorney's Office earlier this month alleging that he personally witnessed an election judge and staff members committing voter fraud. In the affidavit, obtained by National File, Raymond T. Stewart claimed that a Houston precinct judge and staff allegedly used a stack of driver's licenses to allow people to vote at a drive-through window created because of the coronavirus pandemic. Stewart said he became suspicious that the unattended stack of driver's licenses sitting on the table constituted a possible crime. He later told someone he knew professionally, Precinct 1 Constable, Deputy W. Schultz, what had happened. Unfortunately, our conversation was overheard by a staff member in the parking lot. The deputy went inside the polling location, but at this time the driver's licenses were removed and hidden from the table, Stewart said. The deputy departed the area apparently to consult with the election task force and supervisors. I spoke with him several times that day via phone and in person regarding my observations. Harris County District Attorney's Office did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Stewart, a more than 30-year veteran Texas peace officer and poll watcher for candidate Andre Hines, said in his affidavit that he arrived at polling location Northeast Multi-Service Center on Spalding Street in Houston on October 13. Stewart said that the precinct judge, who he identified as April Elmore Gibson, refused to sign his paperwork, and directed to someone inside the polling station named Madonna. He said that Madonna signed his paperwork, but not in the designated signature line. After starting his work as a poll watcher, Stewart said he observed several oddities, the most concerning of which was a table between the sign-in tables 1 and 3. The table contained a large stack of driver's licenses, he said. Staff would come inside from the drive-through voting booth and scan a driver's license from someone outside and get a ticket and return outside, Stewart said. But sometimes a staff member would search through the stack of driver's licenses on the table, then scan it, receive a ticket and also go outside to the drive-through booth. Stewart said that the precinct judge ordered him to leave the polling location around 1 p.m. because he had observed and collected evidence. Stewart said he has not received a call from any federal, county or state official investigating his complaint, he said. Boston police and the FBI announced Monday that they have arrested the man spotted on surveillance footage allegedly igniting a fire inside a ballot drop-off box outside the main campus of the Boston Public Library over the weekend. World E. Armand, 39, is expected to be arraigned in Boston Municipal Court on the charge of willful and malicious burning, the Boston Police Department said in a statement. The FBI joined the investigation Sunday, after the Massachusetts Secretary of State's office made them aware of the overnight attempted arson attack that happened at approximately 4 a.m. outside of the Boston Public Library main branch, in Copley Square. The police department released 2 photos taken from surveillance video allegedly showing the suspect igniting the fire. Armand was initially taken into custody at about 10:50 p.m. on Sunday when officers out on patrol in the area of Copley Square observed a male matching the description of the suspect wanted in connection to the ballot box fire. Police said officers approached the individual and eventually obtained his identity. He had an active straight warrant out of Ipswich District Court for receiving stolen property. Following an investigation, members of the Fire Investigation Unit were able to identify Armand as the suspect in the ballot box fire incident. According to the police statement, federal authorities are now investigating this matter for the next several weeks. It is a top priority of our offices to help maintain the integrity of the election process in Massachusetts by aggressively enforcing federal election laws. U.S. Attorney Andrew E. Lelling and FBI Special Agent Joseph R. Bonavolonta said in a joint statement on Sunday. Voters in Massachusetts can feel confident in the success of the information sharing protocols that we have established with our local, state and federal election security partners in advance of the 2020 election. The statement continued. We remain fully committed to working with these partners to protect our communities as Americans exercise their right to vote. Help from the public is also vital to our effort. We encourage members of the public to remain vigilant and immediately report any suspicious, election-related activity to us. The Boston Police Department said officers responded to the area of 700 Boylston St. at about 4:11 a.m. to find Boston Fire already at the scene tending to smoke coming from an early voting ballot box. Crews were able to extinguish the fire by filling the ballot box with water. The drop box had last been emptied by the Boston Elections Department at 2:29 p.m. on Saturday. After the fire early Sunday, an initial inventory conducted by the Boston Elections Department showed there were 122 ballots inside the charred drop box. When it was emptied, 87 of which were legible and able to be processed. Massachusetts Secretary of the Commonwealth William F. Galvin said in an earlier statement that he contacted Lelling's office and asked that the FBI investigate what appeared to be a deliberate attack on the ballot box. Galvin said voters may track their ballots at www.trackmyballotma.com to confirm receipt. The Boston Elections Department urged those who are not able to confirm their ballot status through the website and who used the Copley Square drop box between 2:30 p.m. on Saturday and 4 a.m. on Sunday to contact them immediately. Affected voters will be mailed a replacement ballot by the City of Boston and will have the option of casting that replacement ballot or voting in person until 8 p.m. on Election Day. If any affected voter does not submit a new ballot, Their original ballot will be hand-counted to the extent possible. What happened in the early hours of this morning to the ballot drop box in Copley Square is a disgrace to democracy, a disrespect to the voters fulfilling their civic duty, and a crime. Galvin and Boston Mayor Martin J. Walsh said in a joint statement of their own. Our first and foremost priority is maintaining the integrity of our elections process and ensuring transparency and trust with our voters. And any effort to undermine or tamper with that process must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We ask voters not to be intimidated by this bad act and remain committed to making their voices heard in this and every election. Amid concerns over malicious attacks on drop boxes, Galvin has also directed all local election officials to increase security around them, including employing drop box guards and video surveillance, and to empty drop boxes frequently. U.S. Marshals in Ohio rescued 45 missing children and 109 additional human trafficking survivors during Operation Autumn Hope, the state's Attorney General announced. Ohio Attorney General David Yost said it was the largest anti-human trafficking effort in state history. Our human trafficking task forces, local law enforcement teaming up with the state, conducted a massive statewide sting last week. Yost wrote in a statement on Twitter. Operation Autumn Hope is the largest single HT operation in state history. Our goal, an Ohio where no human is bought or sold. Yost said 76 missing and exploited children cases were cleared, including 45 by physical recovery by the U.S. Marshals Service. Marshals from southern Ohio and southern West Virginia were involved with the operation, according to a statement from the Marshals' offices. Over the past 5 years, the USMS has recovered missing children in 75% of the cases it has received. The Marshals' statement read, and of those recovered, 72% were recovered within 7 days. The Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act of 2015 enhanced the U.S. Marshals' authority to assist federal, state and local law enforcement with the recovery of missing, endangered or abducted children, regardless of whether a fugitive or sex offender was involved. The operation was carried out in conjunction with state and local agencies, with support by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. A statement by the Ohio Attorney General's office listed dozens of additional agencies that contributed to the operation. A total of 179 arrests were made on a slew of charges. Law enforcement officers gave a more thorough accounting of the charges during a video press conference. Yost said the operation focused on these main points: rescuing victims of human trafficking and referring them to social services, recovering missing and exploited children, apprehending those seeking to have sex with a minor, and arresting male Johns seeking to buy sex. Among those missing included a 15-year-old girl missing from Cleveland whose recovery linked her and other possible victims to an individual in Columbus suspected of human trafficking, a 15-year-old male with 2 warrants who is a suspect in multiple shootings and a homicide, and a 14-year-old girl who was reported missing by the Lancaster Police Department, who was recovered in Columbus within 6 hours of being reported missing. The Ohio AG's office said. An additional 20 or so missing children cases were also cleared. My thanks to all personnel who have stepped up for this operation, said Peter C. Tobin, U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of Ohio. These are the same personnel who hunt down violent fugitives every day. I'm incredibly proud of them, and pleased that they were able to apply those same skills to finding missing children. Tobin added, I know Operation Autumn Hope has made a difference in a lot of young lives. U.S. Marshals in Ohio rescued 45 missing children and 109 additional human trafficking survivors during Operation Autumn Hope, the state's Attorney General announced. Ohio Attorney General David Yost said it was the largest anti-human trafficking effort in state history. Our human trafficking task forces, local law enforcement teaming up with the state, conducted a massive statewide sting last week. Yost wrote in a statement on Twitter. Operation Autumn Hope is the largest single HT operation in state history. Our goal, an Ohio where no human is bought or sold. Yost said 76 missing and exploited children cases were cleared, including 45 by physical recovery by the U.S. Marshals Service. Marshals from southern Ohio and southern West Virginia were involved with the operation, according to a statement from the Marshals' offices. Over the past 5 years, The USMS has recovered missing children in 75% of the cases it has received. The Marshal's statement read, and of those recovered, 72% were recovered within 7 days. The Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act of 2015 enhanced the U.S. Marshals' authority to assist federal, state and local law enforcement with the recovery of missing, endangered or abducted children, regardless of whether a fugitive or sex offender was involved. The operation was carried out in conjunction with state and local agencies, with support by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. A statement by the Ohio Attorney General's office listed dozens of additional agencies that contributed to the operation. A total of 179 arrests were made on a slew of charges. Law enforcement officers gave a more thorough accounting of the charges during a video press conference. Yost said the operation focused on these main points: rescuing victims of human trafficking and referring them to social services, recovering missing and exploited children, apprehending those seeking to have sex with a minor, and arresting male Johns seeking to buy sex. Among those missing included a 15-year-old girl missing from Cleveland whose recovery linked her and other possible victims to an individual in Columbus suspected of human trafficking, a 15-year-old male with 2 warrants who is a suspect in multiple shootings and a homicide, and a 14-year-old girl who was reported missing by the Lancaster Police Department, who was recovered in Columbus within 6 hours of being reported missing. The Ohio AGS office said, an additional 20 or so missing children cases were also cleared. My thanks to all personnel who have stepped up for this operation, said Peter C. Tobin, U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of Ohio. These are the same personnel who hunt down violent fugitives every day. I'm incredibly proud of them, and pleased that they were able to apply those same skills to finding missing children. Tobin added, I know Operation Autumn Hope has made a difference in a lot of young lives. Exclusive. The United States is warning it will destroy potential Iranian long-range missile shipments delivered to the Maduro regime in Venezuela. A senior administration official tells America Daily News. The transfer of long-range missiles from Iran to Venezuela is not acceptable to the United States and will not be tolerated or permitted, said Elliot Abrams, the State Department Special Representative for Iran and Venezuela. We will make every effort to stop shipments of long-range missiles, and if somehow they get to Venezuela they will be eliminated there, added a senior administration official. The officials provided no information that such shipments were imminent. They only claimed that Iran and Venezuela are a likely pair for arms deals. Iran has announced its intention to engage in arms sales, and Venezuela is an obvious target because those two pariah regimes already have a relationship, said Abrams. Venezuela is paying in gold to buy gasoline from Iran, and there is an Iranian presence in the country. Venezuela's economy has collapsed, so every bar of gold for Iran is tens of thousands of dollars the Venezuelan people need for food and medicine. Last week, a United Nations embargo on Iran buying and selling conventional weapons expired. The Trump administration unsuccessfully tried to convince the United Nations Security Council to extend the embargo. Iran has shipped missiles to the Houthis, so we know they are ready, willing, and able to ship them to Venezuela and other possible buyers, said the administration official. Every delivery of Iranian arms destabilizes South America and the Caribbean, and is especially dangerous to Venezuela's neighbors in Brazil, Colombia, and Guyana. Missiles and terrorism are key components of Iranian security policy. Iran has already spread Lebanese Hezbollah, its chief proxy, throughout South America, said Behnam Bente Lebloua, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Potential Iranian missile or military shipments to South America will constitute a major test of the administration's arms embargo on Iran. Russia and China will be watching closely to see how Washington responds. NASA announced it has discovered water on the sunlit surface of the Moon. The water was spotted near the Clavius crater, one of the largest crater formations on the celestial satellite, and one that can be seen with the naked eye. Paul Hayne, a planetary scientist at the University of Colorado, said on a conference call with the press. Hayne is the lead author of one of the studies published on the topic. Casey Honnibal, lead author of the other study, said there are between 100 and 400 parts per million of water, or roughly the equivalent of a 12-ounce bottle of water, within a cubic meter of lunar soil. We had indications that H2O, the familiar water we know, might be present on the sunlit side of the moon, said Paul Hertz, NASA's director of the Astrophysics Division in the Science Mission Directorate, in a statement. Now we know it is there. This discovery challenges our understanding of the lunar surface and raises intriguing questions about resources relevant for deep space exploration. The study led by Hannibal found the presence of water directly on the surface, while Haynes' study speculated that water may be trapped in small spatial scales all over the surface of the moon. Researchers have known for some time about the existence of that water on the moon, having first discovered water vapor as early as 1971. In 2009, the first evidence of frozen water on the surface was discovered. On the call, Jacob Bleacher, Chief Exploration Scientist for NASA's Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate, said the results are exciting for human exploration, but there are greater implications for it. Understanding where the water is will help us determine where to send Artemis astronauts on the moon, Bleacher explained. The new studies note it could be significantly more accessible than previously thought. As such, the water could be used for drinking, fuel supply and other use cases. Water was previously believed to only exist on areas of the moon that are always in shadows and do not receive sunlight, making them dangerous and frigid for astronauts to access. Prior to the SOFIA observations, we knew there was some kind of hydration, Hannibal added in the statement. But we didn't know how much, if any, was actually water molecules, like we drink every day, or something more like drain cleaner. The discovery was made from NASA's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, SOFIA, described as the world's largest airborne observatory. SOFIA is a modified Boeing 747 airplane capable of flying high in Earth's atmosphere, allowing for its 9-foot telescope to get a clear view of the universe and objects in our solar system. It is able to observe infrared wavelengths that are capable of detecting phenomena impossible to see with visible light, NASA added. In 2018, a separate group of researchers published a study that suggested water on the moon may be more accessible than first thought. The findings come in advance of NASA's Artemis program, which is intended to land American astronauts on the moon by 2024, as well as establish a sustainable human presence on Earth's natural satellite. A strengthening tropical storm Zeta is taking aim at Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula on Monday before the storm is forecast to target the U.S. Gulf Coast by this middle of the week. The National Hurricane Center said that Zeta is located about 120 miles southeast of Cozumel, Mexico, with maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, moving northwest at 10 miles per hour. Forecasters from the NHC said a NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft found early Monday morning that Zeta is rapidly strengthening, and that hurricane conditions and storm surge are expected across portions of the Yucatan Peninsula by later in the day. Zeta is forecast to become a minimal hurricane before reaching the Yucatan near Cozumel and Playa del Carmen on Monday night. A hurricane warning was expanded for the Yucatan Peninsula from Tulum to Jalam, including Cancun and Cozumel. Officials in Quintana Roo State, the location of Cancun, and other resorts, said they were watching the storm. They reported nearly 60,000 tourists in the state as of midweek. The state government said 71 shelters were being readied for tourists or residents who might need them. The region is still recovering from Hurricane Delta and Tropical Storm Gamma earlier this month. Zeta is forecast to enter the Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday, and then track towards the U.S. Gulf Coast by Wednesday. The storm will then threaten the storm-ravaged Louisiana coast. It's not yet known how strong Zeta will be when it approaches the coast. Previous storms have rapidly strengthened this year, when over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. The most recent forecasts show Zeta could make landfall anywhere from Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle as a strong tropical storm or minimal hurricane. This southeastern Louisiana to Florida Panhandle region is no stranger to hurricanes and tropical storms, especially this year. Overall rainfall, surge, wind impacts of a strong tropical storm or even a minimal hurricane won't be even close to the severity of a major storm. The storm could bring widespread 2 to 4 inches of rain along the central Gulf Coast, with isolated amounts of 6 inches possible. Heavy rain is then expected to spread into the Tennessee Valley, all the way to the mid-Atlantic states, according to the NHC. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards urged his state's citizens to monitor the storm. And the state activated its crisis action team. It is unfortunate we face another tropical threat this late in a very active season. Edwards tweeted. We must roll up our sleeves. Like we always do. And prepare for a potential impact to Louisiana. If Zeta makes landfall in Louisiana, it would be the 5th named storm to do so this season, which Dean described as incredible. Zeta represents a record for the earliest 27th named storm, beating out November 29 in 2005. According to Colorado State University hurricane researcher Phil Klotzbach, there is just over 1 month left in the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, which ends November 30th. But this season has broken numerous records as forecasters in September ran out of traditional names and went to the Greek alphabet for storms Alpha and Beta. So far this year, there have been 27 named storms, including 10 hurricanes and, of those, 4 major hurricanes. That's well above an average year. The last time the Greek alphabet was used in the Atlantic was in 2005, the year of Hurricane Katrina, with a total of 28 storms that year. The first 6 letters of the Greek alphabet were used: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, and Zeta. We're on track to having the busiest season on record, Dean said Monday. Please like and subscribe to follow the latest daily news. Don't forget to comment your opinion on this newsletter. Thank you for your time. Goodbye and see you in the next news.